Hello, dear friends. This is Kardec Radio at 11 p.m., nourishing our souls with one more chapter of Hail Christ. Hail Christ is a book psychographed by Chico Xavier and written by the spirit author Emmanuel. This is one of Emmanuel's novels. He began it with 2,000 years ago, and then 50 years later, Hail Christ, Renunciation, Paul and Stephen. The question here, why did Emmanuel bring novels for us? Was he in need to entertain us? No. Was it real? Yes, these are real accounts, real stories. So what is the point? We know Spiritism comes to console us, comes to educate us, to help us create new habits, to instruct us. So where do we find these teachings of Spiritism boosting in us something? What is it? The inner transformation. Right now, this book was written 67 years ago. Right now, the book Hail Christ, like the other novels by Emmanuel, is so up to date in terms of coaching us for better thinking, better feeling, to give us quality of life. Okay? So, neuroscience in 2014 to 15 showed to us in imaging studies that when we are reading novels like this one, they don't say the spiritist ones, but you can compare to the same style, the same genre. It talks about this transformation of our neurobiology. The neural pathways change, and thus we feel differently. So when you're reading this, it's not about the delight of the story only, but how it's coaching us to better doings, to better deeds in life. When we are seeing people like Quintus Varus, Livia, when we are seeing Basilius, Corvinus, Lucanus, many of these wonderful souls who were Christians, they are inspiring us, coaching us to similar behaviors in understanding, forgiveness, tolerance, kindness, resilience, endurance, and 10,000 Christian virtues. So that's why we're studying this book too. This book becomes Hail Christ and all the other novels. They are true coaches for our soul, okay? So that's why we're studying here too. As Emmanuel said, and it was clear, and the good spirits knew it all along. We're only getting to know now through science the many things, but they knew it, that this would be the healing process for us. Having these coaches inspiring us to a better self. So he says in the preface, may the example of these post-apostolic children of the gospel inspiring us today, the simplicity and toil, the trust and love with which they renounced themselves in service to the Divine Master. May we as they transform thorns into flowers and stones into bread in the endeavors that the Most High has placed in our hands. Today, as in days gone by, Jesus overlooks our rebellious words, our onslaughts of opinion, our sectarian fanaticism, and our exhibitionism in deeds that are alluring outwardly but sickly within. Above all, the exalted benefactor expects from our lives our hearts, character, conduct, attitudes, examples, and ongoing personal service. The only means that can ensure the effectiveness of our cooperating with Him in building the kingdom of God. We are here right now in this very special week because it's pre-Easter, though we Spiritists don't actually celebrate it. There's no particular rite or celebration, but we recall, of course we do. It's a moment for reverence for us. We are recalling the reasons why Jesus came to the earth and why He is a guide and model for us, and the whole passage on earth. After all, we are here under His guidance. He's our shepherd, and we need to hear the shepherd. We're never going to be lost, but we may be derailed, not lost. Okay? So, thank you, friends, for joining us today. I see wonderful friends joining us here. I see some of them. I see those like Daisy Gallen, thank you, Daisy. Tissa Silva, thank you. Emmanuel, a big hug to you, Emmanuel. Sol Souza, Paula, super hug to you, and Tony. Nora Brasil, a big hug to you, Nora. Eduardo Guimarães, hello, Eduardo. It's good to see you. Carol Correia, hello, Carol. Teresa Castro, how have you been, Teresa? These are some of the folks that I can see. Of course, as you write, Gabriel Inácio, hello. We can always, Tissa Silva, we can always respond to questions, and if you make a comment, we will read it to join forces with this beautiful study of the book Hail Christ. Hello, Andrea Cosley. How are you? Are you ready, friends? You know where we've been in the story, so let us recap. Where have we been again? You remember. Tassianus and Blandina, the father and the daughter, met again. Little Blandina, and little Livia. They met Livia. And at some point, Tassianus brings Helen, his wife, to see Livia at her deathbed. She finds out that Livia, the woman whom she persecuted till the end, is her abandoned daughter. She abandoned her when she was a baby girl. Basilius adopted her. Yesterday, we were asked to think about our reincarnatory program. Remember, we are seeing here Helen. She had a reincarnatory program. She failed. Due to her pride and selfishness, she failed big time. She had a series of crimes in her hands, and at the end of her life, she couldn't put up with the guilt. She killed herself. And it's very hard for Tassianus and Blandina. The aftermath of all this, Quintus Varus is discarnated. The father, Tassianus' father, understand why, and he can't explain it to people. How is he gonna explain it? So people find it weird. The little Blandina is going through these mishaps of life, and I say mishaps just figuratively speaking. But now Tassianus is on his own. His wife is no longer there. His great friend, or maybe more than a friend, Livia, is not there any longer. Basilius is not there, and this is year 256. When we began the story, Emmanuel said it was 217. So Tassianus by now is around like 50 years old. And Emmanuel always contextualizes what was happening at the time. And that's so beautiful because he shows to us that the general mindset of the population pertained to what we're seeing in these families. When we're seeing these families like a sample of what was happening there. And also to make us understand that we're not isolated when we make our decisions. So we're seeing time and again that there is this moral decadence, right? He says here, there's another emperor, this time it's Licinius Valerianus. He got to power because he was great in his military exploits. And they were expanding all the more, but Rome, in its decency, it was suffering from neglect and subversion. Irresponsibility and discipline was growing in the provinces. But Tacianus, now let's observe this. Tacianus, however, had accelerated his inner renewal. Too much to be overly concerned with the outside world. Okay, this is a major thing for us. Major. Right now, because we have social media and the news are everywhere, we're so connected and many people are truly worried. And you know why? Because they are afraid of looking within. So they prefer to be focused and think that the chaos is outside. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But like Tacianus, when we are really focused in our inner renewal, we can't spend time concerned about the outside world. That doesn't mean we're not going to help people. It means we're not going to be consumed by it. Recently, I've been talking to several people who claim, oh, but I'm so concerned. It's fair, but in a way, if we keep looking outside, it's because we are afraid of looking within. Yes, we are isolated and we're kind of cornered by life right now. We're literally cornered. It's as if life is saying, and even Michael Moore, who is not a spiritist, was writing this post today in his Facebook page, and he was so right. It's as if planet Earth told everybody to go to their room because we have done something. And in a way, he's right. We're being asked to do this inner renewal, but people are panicking because it's hard. When we go to our rooms and we have 10,000 things we haven't accomplished, and not in terms of work, but emotions, inner work, inner organization of our emotions, we panic. And we think it's because of the world. It's not. It's because of what we have been missing. Look at Helen. She escaped all her duties. At the end of her life, when life presents to her a reality check, she can't handle it. She can't handle it. Yes, Marcos. Even Michael Moore is awakening. I hope so. Because usually he tells us about others. I don't know. I hope he feels he has some inner work to do. I don't know. I'm just saying. All of us have to do it, right? I have to do it too. And hello, Lisa Teles. Hello, Angela Toesca. Hello, Hercules Fernandes. Hello, Renata. Welcome, friends, to Cardiac Radio. So, in this chapter, we're going to see that Tacianus is in this inner. He distanced himself from all political and philosophical issues to rearrange his personal achievements and values. When I see people who are too concerned about the politicians, about the leaders, and trying to make a case as if they were the true lawyers of the world, the advocates, the persecutors of the world. They are trying to escape the inner journey. We are trying to escape the inner journey. When we keep blaming on others, Tassianus finally understood he had to do this inner journey. Okay, that's the beginning. That's the beginning. You've been through this and you know Tassianus is hard. He's stubborn. Mamma mia. And he observed that it was hard for him to be in his own house. So right now he has this little house that was Basilius and Livia, and he remodeled the house and beautified it and decided to live there with Blandina and a couple of slaves, Servilinus and Valeria, who were devoted to him. So he was living with Blandina, Quintus Celsius, who is Quintus Varus reincarnated, his father, now adopted son. And Quintus Celsius now, as a child growing up with Blandina, he is Christian. He shares every day the Christian teachings with Blandina. Blandina is a medium, we know it. And she's suffering a lot. She's weeping for no reason. She has heart palpitations, but you know why? Because her mother, who discarnated, is sending her messages asking for her prayers. It's hard for a preteen, a teenager, to go through this. This is a parenthesis for us. We need to be more resourceful to lead the mediumship of our children. Even spiritists have a hard time knowing what to do with it on themselves and their children. So that's why we need to read, study, and talk with experienced people to bridge it up so our children have an easier transition into this awareness of their, and I say when they are older, in terms of being mediums, okay? Little by little, Quintus Celsius' beliefs and comments conquered Blandina's heart in terms of Christianity. Blandina became Christian. Yeah. And she even talked like Quintus Celsius tried to talk. Tassianus into Christianity, very subtly. He's very eloquent, but Tassianus is so resistant. He can't. He doesn't open up to it. So, so little by little, as they are living there, one day, they receive a letter from Lucilla. Lucilla is married to Galba. Lucilla is the other daughter of Tassianus. You remember that? She's the other daughter. She married her uncle. She's living in Rome. She writes a letter, not to the father, but to Blandina. In this letter, she says that she doesn't trust her father anymore because he allowed her to commit suicide. Now he's feeling the blows of life. His own daughter punishing him for Helen's suicide. And says, my grandfather, Vittorius, decided to sell the land in Lyon. Blandina, you better come and live with us in Rome, because pretty soon this house is no longer going to be ours. She doesn't care what's going to happen to her father. So pause here for a second. Let's talk about something here. We're talking about the divine justice. Friends, Emmanuel, in the book O Consolador, which is not yet translated, he shares with us that the Mosaic commandments are for us the foundation for the understanding of divine justice. So if we want to begin on the right foot in life, we need to read the commandments and follow through. The fourth one is honor your father and mother. And right now, Lucilia is not honoring at all. She doesn't care about her father. On the contrary, she mistreats him by not talking to him and by even trying to separate him from his other daughter. Blandina, of course, doesn't hear Lucilia. You know, as Emmanuel says, Lucilia had no reason to hurt him like that. Blandina did not hide her disgust with the news. She immediately replied to her sister and said she had no intention of abandoning her father as long as she was alive. So Theodulus goes back, the emissary that was there, goes back, and they decide to stay. Blandina, Celsius, Tassianus, and the couple who were the slaves. When spring came along, he was faced with the need to be away from home because he needed to bring money in. For the first time, Tassianus is going to work. He's 50 years old. He didn't ever have the need to really work. He was administrative, but not like work. And this is a big parenthesis for us, okay? That has everything to do with the current times we're living in. He says here that it was hard, like it happened to his father. It was hard for a man to find dignified employment. Imagine a woman at the time. The middle class was nothing more than a dark and dangerous corridor between the miserable lowlands of the slaves and the golden mountains of the masters. Question for us: how do you think this changed Christianity? It was thanks to Jesus, to this push to equality, to solidarity, that we changed the game. Because until then, it was like this: either you're rich or you're a slave. In between, it was like whatever. People didn't know. So Christianity comes and reorganizes social life. With the run of centuries, it allows for dignified work, expansion of hospitals. So, what we see nowadays, hospitals, pharmacies, schools, all these different professions, is thanks to our Christian foundation, pushing us to work, to be useful. But right now with the coronavirus, if there is one profession that is being really challenged, healthcare providers, especially medicine. And you may be asking why. Well, because lately many people were entering the fields of medicine for business, not out of love. I say this because I taught at the medical school and dental school, and I tell you, dignified people, but it was allowed in our current times, it's allowed to enter these fields out of pride. Now, when we are facing death in front of us, the patients deteriorating in less than hours in front of the healthcare providers, it's challenging their core to say, what am I doing in my life? Because life is so impermanent. We're potentially transforming the mindset. Potentially. Jesus is pushing to transform the mindset of healthcare in this world. We need to change it. We can no longer afford being the way we've been. Treating the sacred practice of medicine as business. I know wonderful professionals who love it, but it became a business to the point that doctors barely have time to see the patients. Now they are the last ones to console, especially the nurses. The last ones in front of the patients because there is no time to call the families. It's time for reality check. Food for thought for all of us. We better awake. This excuse, I'm going to do it because it's a good career financially. Now, you are at risk. And not only that, but you'll be deeply distraught by seeing people perishing in front of you and you're not going to be able to do a thing. It's like a war field, maximized, because there is no shelter anymore. In times of war, there's the battlefield and there's your home. You may go back home after the battle and say, well, that was a different reality. Right now, there is no division because the battlefields are right there, wherever we are. So it's time for us to awake. It's time for us to awake. So in the case of Tassianis, he had to find a job and it was hard. He talked to his friends and people didn't care anymore. And people are still like this nowadays. They treat you one way when we have a particular house, a particular car, a particular position. When you change, they're like, oh, I don't know why you changed. So if you have less money, maybe it's because still we think you're being punished by God. That ancient Roman mentality, thinking we're being punished when we come to these hardships. But he found a job he did, to compete in chariot races for cash prizes. He had solid chariots and excellent horses. And he became famous, renowned, while his daughter was suffering. Her health was perishing. Helen, her mother, was begging for her prayers. So nobody knew how to help her. Quintus Celsius was the one who was trying to calm her and bring her greater wisdom. But what happened on the behind the scenes of it all? The years passed. Now it's year 259. And he had to have a loan to pay for their bills. And it was pretty hard. Those were bitter years for him. And one day, he receives the news from Rome. Anacleta, who used to be his wife's servant, Anacleta, remember? She came and said, I'm coming from Rome telling you that I'm retiring because I can't stand it anymore. He got to know of the death of his father-in-law, Opilius Victorius. He was having terrible nightmares. We know he committed many crimes during that life. And we got to know of even worse. Theodulus, who used to be the affair of Helen, now was having an affair with Tatiana's daughter, Lucilla. And one day, her husband found out and stabbed him, killed him. Once the crime had been committed, which like so many others went unnoticed by the well-bribed authorities, Galba took his bed delirious. He became ill. And guess what? Anacleta discloses that Lucilia killed her very husband. Tassianus, they were weeping at such calamities. His other daughters' laws of morals horrified them. And they wished the best to Anacleta in her new life, but all of it became so hard for Blantina. To recap her mother's fate, to recap her sister's misdeeds, all these crimes, the death of the grandfather, so many losses for her. She started deteriorating so many ways. And in a way, she tried talking to her father, asking him to allow her to die as Christian. But Tassianus cannot. He cannot allow it. He cannot allow it. He turns to her who is ill, bedridden. You too, my daughter. It's always Christ. Always this Christ searching for me, tormenting me, pursuing me. You were my only hope. I thought the Galilean carpenter would spare you, but you too, oh Blantina, why don't you love your father the way your father loves you? Everyone has abandoned me. Why are you two leaving me? I'm troubled, defeated, alone. Poor girl, right? She's dying, and here comes Tassiano, so self-centered. Mamma mia, he doesn't stop his self-centeredness. We understand him, but he doesn't have empathy enough for people in critical times. And there are people who are like this. They may see you in the worst condition and they have no sorrow. They don't feel your pain. Now we're going to talk about something in psychology. It's our psychotic trait. It's when we lack the empathy for others. On Earth, with this coronavirus, it's boosting empathy in us. It's boosting empathy. Because we can no longer be on our own feeling like it's not with us, it's with all of us. Empathy. Tassianus, remember, before he reincarnated, he belonged to a group of obsessors. And when we're talking about obsessors, we're talking about this psychotic trait. They don't have empathy for people suffering because they make suffer. Very egocentric, narcissistic, like he's only thinking of himself. Don't you see what I am feeling? Don't you see what I'm going through? Don't you see what He doesn't see the pain of others. He's beginning like he's in the ABCs of it. But how many of us experience that in our daily lives? Sometimes with a boss, hopefully not us. But whenever people talk about themselves, we feel the urge to talk about we're not talking about when you have a best friend and you're sharing. We're talking about daily life. That compulsion to talk about ourselves. That's called narcissism. Narcissism is bad. It's selfishness. Tassianus is awakening. He's little by little coming out of his shell. Little by little. But he's still very self-centered. He's seeing his daughter, whom he loves, dying. And he's still thinking about himself. But not for long, right? He's readjusting, as Emmanuel says. But he first needs to be instructed. So here comes a daughter. Don't grieve, Papa. She begged, resigned. I don't want Jesus, but you. I do want Jesus, but you are all I have. I've never found anything in life equal to your love. Your love is my wealth. I want to follow in your footsteps more than anything else. Can't you see that we have always prayed the prayer of Sibel together in the morning? Everything for me will be according to your wishes. This is honoring the Father. Wow. The girl stopped for a few moments, showing signs of inexplicable joy on her gaunt face, and then she continued. Of course, she's not alone. That's why it's inexplicable joy. Late this afternoon, Livia was here. She had an enormous harp adorned with roses of light. She sang the hymn of the star to the stars for me, with the same voice as when we met her on the banks of the road. She told me that we'll be all together soon and that I shouldn't fret if you don't consent to my becoming a Christian now. She said that life is eternal and divine and that we have no reason to torment each other. She assured me that the love of Jesus glorifies our path and that over time it will flourish everywhere. Besides, dear Father, I would never go to a heaven where you were not there too. She gazed at the ceiling with her deep sparkling eyes and said, Jesus is also the love that waits forever. There will be forgiveness for everyone. What is Tassiana's reaction? He was still sad. Unbelievable, huh? Unbelievable. But he's progressing, as Emmanuel says. He's feeling lonely, but he's readjusting. But he is a hard case. And then at some point, he reflects a little bit and says, forgive me, my daughter. Forget what I said. Tell me what you plan to do. You are free to embrace Christianity. Our love isn't a prison of suffering, but communion in perfect joy. Go ahead, Blandina. I'll go along with it. So then she says that there is an old man at St. John's Church named Aeneas Pudens, and she would like him to come personally and pray with her. And then when she dies, she wants to be buried in the Christian's tomb. He tried to dissuade her again, but it didn't work. Blandina was happy. She smiled. You see, only the continuity of lives make us understand why Tassianus is such a stubborn person, to say the least. And we're not judging, we're just observing. As Kardec says, observe the facts, analyze the language. Because when he was in the spiritual realm before this incarnation, he was enjoying life. He was leading a group of obsessors against the light on the earth. That's why he fights with Jesus in some way. We're talking about the Antichrist, which is not a person. When we see people talking about the Antichrist, it may be any one of us who are not cooperating with the proposal of the Christ on earth. Oh, Vanessa, now I'm concerned. We should be. Because we're being invited to cooperate. But if we don't cooperate, we are creating problems. And what is this? The opposite. Anti what Christ is proposing. It's as simple as that. It's not a devil figure. It's our vibration. So tonight, or today, wherever you are, we're being called to do a major exercise, which probably is unique. We need to realize, like Tassiana's, we need to observe, what are my anti-Christ emanations? Am I still resisting? I'll give an example. When people say, yeah, I know Jesus said we have to forgive, but come on, I don't have to forgive it all at once. I'll forgive when I forgive. No. The proposal is only one, and the law is only one. If we don't fulfill it, we are transgressing it. And if we are transgressing it, we're against the divine plan. And Christ came to fulfill God's laws. So when we resist to forgive, we are emanating Antichrist vibrations. By principle. It's not only about, but I accept Jesus, but you're not accepting the program. It's not about the person. It's about the mission. Like Judas, he didn't understand it. He created a lot of problems. So in the next 24 hours, let us all think about it. How am I cooperating with the big plan of the earth? And let us observe where, and I'll say quote unquote, our anti-Christ vibrations are. Let us write them down and work on them. And work on them sooner than later. Emmanuel blesses us with these beautiful teachings. These teachings that are unprecedented. So we see that Blandina now was calmer and quieted down, because the next day, the man, Aeneas Prudence, who is he? Can you believe life? As Silvia Terry is saying, there is a reason behind everything, right, Silvia? And Aeneas Prudence is an 80-year-old man who used to be friends of Quintus Varus, Tassiana's father. Emmanuel is showing to us that we're so well taken care of by God, that they are working with Tassianus so closely. There's so many people operating for his transformation. So he comes, and he was also the one who succeeded Appius Corvinus, who was the one that helped Quintus Varus, Tassiana's father. He was still working, although he had everyone's respect simply because of his status as the oldest worker in the community. He was also a living example of faith, service, diligence, and selflessness. Another lesson for us here. For those who think, oh, I'm already retired and I don't have to do anything, here are the first Christians showing to us that that's bad reasoning. We're supposed to keep on going and going and going until life says it's over. Like Chico Xavier. Never stopped. Like Divaldo Franco. Doesn't stop. And I know many people who would say to Divaldo Franco, come on, you're old, you should stop. And he's there. It's his business, not ours. We can't tell him what to do. When people say, come on, you've done so much. You're tired, you're old. This is the voice of evil. Because God wants us to be useful always. It's so sad what we're doing to the elderly on earth. We have this mentality that when you're past a certain age, you're fruitless. It's so sad because the Spiritism says, you know what? That's not true. Primitive Christianity proves that to us with men like Ennis Puddens, who is 80 years old back then and kept on working and helping. And he's going to be crucial at this time of Tassiana's life. Right? Gabriel Inácio saying, whenever we judge someone or being antichrist, I would say this. Whenever we go against the plan of the earth, which is a Christ-conscious plan, we're still emanating vibrations against it, Gabriel Inácio. We're not saying that we are antichrist. No, for God's sakes, no. That's not what we meant. There's no like, I am the antichrist. But I may be emanating vibrations that are of the nature against the Christ-conscious plan for the earth. Okay? Yes, John De Rosa, let us commit to the objective, to die working. Deal. Seal the deal. Yes, we're in. We are in. So, this man visits the house. At first, he doesn't feel very comfortable. He knows who he is. But then Tassianus, for the first time ever, sees what it is, a Christian conversation. He is there participating as Quintus Celsius and Blandina are talking with this older man. You see, teenagers. An hour of wholesome conversation, and at the end, he recites the Lord's Prayer. O Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive our debts as we forgive our debtors. Do not let us fall into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever, so be it. Tassianus was speechless and thrilled as he listened to the prayer, and he was touched by the sweet trust of his children who repeated word for word. He listened with the greatest respect to all of his guests' remarks, and as Aeneas was leaving, he politely begged him not to forget his children. Blandina and Celsius were devout Christians, and he as their parent would not oppose their sentiments. The ailing girl looked at him joyfully. For the first time, Tassianus was going to worship the god Cybele by himself. He felt alone. For the first time, he felt the coldness of those ancient gods, the statues. But deep inside, he felt like not changing yet. Tung, 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 tung. Hard to crack the head, huh? Now life is going to literally crack his head. He is blind. And what's going to happen to him? He went to his work. He had a race to run. But this time, says Emmanuel, he goes to the race. But his mind is at home because his daughter Blandina is dying. He doesn't feel fully there. He begins the race, but he feels like somewhat dizzy. He suffers a terrible fall and was thrown into the heap of a twisted iron, wounding his face and seriously injuring his eyes. He was blind. He comes back home. Quintus Celsius, the boy, is helping him, and he needs help. He calls for the help of the 80-year-old man. Enos Pudens comes. He leaves his duties and understands that now he has to be there day and night, night and day, to help Tassianus. Tassianus is so loving, he does not want to shock his daughter. He keeps pretending that everything is all right, saying that he's daily working, he's coming back late. He's recovering, though blind. He's deeply distraught because he cannot make the means meet. Blandina dies. And now he feels all alone. Quintus Celsius turns to him, embraces him, and said, "You have me. I'm here for you." Remember, he's Quintus Varus reincarnated. When Blandina dies, at her tomb, he says, "Blandina, dear daughter, wherever you are, be my light again. Dear star, light your rays so I may continue on. I'm all alone on earth. If there's another life beyond this cold place, implacably holding you, have mercy on me. Don't let the darkness envelop me." He has a whole discourse for Blandina. His voice at some point became silent in the cemetery. Quintus Celsius, as we've said, comes to him and says, "Father, you'll never be alone. I'm here." The Christians sing and pray. Tassianus realized that his life could not be included in that sanctuary of principles so different from his own. He concluded that his inexorable destiny was inviting him to move on. And yet, he doesn't surrender easily. After all, how many people do we know that are like this? The problem is, are we like this? Are we like this? Life is presenting us the central themes in our lives, and we're like Tassianus, giving excuses and going around. Food for thought, friends. Let us not be afraid. In the next 24 hours, let us together, wherever you are, wherever I'll be, here in the next 24 hours, let us think about how we can refine our alignment with the governance of the earth. This book is titled Hail Christ. So it's asking us to polish ourselves to be better, in better synchronicity with the governance of the earth. What are we missing that we need to align, calibrate? We're now going to invite everyone to a prayer. A prayer for all of us, for our own alignment, so we may be ever more helpful, efficient, more efficient in our help with the governance of the earth. All right? So let us hear. I will play the Ave Maria because we feel like this is the tone of our need to surrender. Let us all visualize our dear planet Earth. Let us see ourselves there. Let us observe that we are deeply immersed in the vibrations of the Christ of the earth. We see rays of healing light from Jesus' Sacred Heart enveloping us in deep, deep harmony and serenity. And we breathe in and out, visualizing that our dear Mother Mary comes and puts on us her blanket of protection, reminds us that everything shall pass, but invites us to listen to her Son. From Jesus' mouth, light of love enveloping our mental field, cleansing it, refining it, and we raise our thoughts in gratitude. Dear Jesus, we are awakening thanks to you. Thanks to your patience and you're never giving up on us. You have always loved us, and we are awakening to this love to you. Forgive us for the impediments over the centuries. And we understand that you are asking us simply to endure with simplicity, to be resilient with love and faithfulness. We now would like to partake in this vibrational harmony, hoping that all the people on the earth feel your blessings, and especially those who are working hard to help the ones who are in the greatest need. We pray for all physicians, nurses, therapists of all sorts, administrators. We pray for all the families, for the parents, for those who are disabled and dependent on so many people. May all caregivers of the world feel your loving embrace and be recharged to fulfill their tasks with love and kindness. And may those who are crossing over, either due to coronavirus or other things, may they transition with greater ease, feeling the loved ones who are helping them, the protecting spirits. Thank you so much, dear Lord, for the preciousness of this moment in our lives, for being able to be here, adjusting ourselves all the more like Tassianus did many centuries ago. May you bless this moment as we bring it to a close, but stay connected with you, and so be it. Well, friends, this is readjustment, just like us. Let us come back tomorrow, because potentially it's going to be the grand finale of Hail Christ. It's all about the end of the struggles, what's going to happen, and how can we best adjust ourselves to the plans of the Christ. A super hug to you, and until tomorrow, God willing, here at Kardec Radio, always nourishing our souls. Thank you.